The first mistake the galaxy made was assuming the slap would shatter him. The second was not realizing that humans have a way of turning insults into invitations. The Prism Colosseum burned with light, refracting across its crystalline arches like a living rainbow. It was the heart of the Empire's pageantry, a place where rulers flaunted their strength before entire systems. Every balcony overflowed with alien dignitaries, scale monarchs, insectoid matriarchs, avian lords with wings folded like capes. Their whispers swirled through the dome, a current of anticipation sharpened by cruelty. For today, they were promised something delicious, the humiliation of Earth's first ambassador. Captain Elias Rourke walked into that storm of expectation with the gait of a man heading for a late-night diner. His boots rang against polished marble, his shoulders loose beneath the simple marine blue coat he had refused to exchange for ceremonial garb. Sweat ran down his back, though not from fear. He had been briefed, warned, and prepared. Still, nothing could quite equal the sound of 1,000 species hungering to see him bleed. He tipped his head back, scanning the tiers of faces, and muttered just loud enough for the translation orbs to pick up. Big crowd. Guess nobody had cable tonight. The laughter was uneasy, not quite permitted. Rourke felt it ripple through them like a fault line opening. Humor was always the first grenade he threw. On the high dais sat Overlord Xyler, armored in platinum scales. His throne fused into the crystalline floor as though he had grown from it. His eyes glowed a furnace gold, and when they fixed on Rourke, the human felt heat lick his skin. Xyler raised one clawed hand, and silence slammed down. From the shadows descended Commander Veyrak, the Empire's favored executioner. A tower of muscle-plated and obsidian armor, he moved with a predator's patience. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of inevitability. His gauntlet hand flexed, talons glistening with ceremonial venom. Rourke clasped his hands loosely behind his back. His jaw worked once, then stilled. He remembered the briefing. Expect theater. Expect pain. Endure, and you earn humanity's dignity. He'd never cared much for dignity, but endurance that he understood. Veyrak circled him once, twice. The arena held its breath. Then the alien struck. The slap cracked through the Colosseum like a thunderclap, steel striking flesh. The force rocked Rourke's head sideways, drove him half a step back. His cheek blossomed with heat, a copper taste flooding his mouth. Gasps and hisses rippled across the tiers. That was the script. The human ambassador humbled, dignity dissolved. The galaxy waited for him to fall silent, perhaps even to weep. Instead, Rourke chuckled. It began low, then rolled upward until it rang out across the dome. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and studied the smear of blood. Not bad, he said, voice carrying steady. But if that's your best, I'm going to be disappointed. My ex-wife hit harder, and she was holding a frying pan at the time. The silence that followed was different, uneasy, off balance. It was not the sound of prey cowering. It was the sound of predators suddenly unsure. Veyrak sneered, lips curling to expose serrated teeth. You mock death. No, Rourke replied, his grin lazy as a wolf's. I mock you. Death at least earns respect. A ripple surged through the Colosseum. Some laughed, some hissed. Even Xyler leaned forward, intrigued. Rourke straightened, rolling his shoulders, every inch the Marine who had faced deserts, jungles, and endless deployments. He was alone here, light years from the blue marble of Earth, but he felt the weight of billions on his back. If he folded now, humanity would wear chains for centuries. He took a slow step closer to Veyrak, closing the space with defiant calm. You think a slap is going to break us? We built a species out of worse. Ice Ages tried. Plagues tried. Even reality TV tried. And trust me, that was crueler than you'll ever be. A rustle swept through the tiers. The translation orbs caught each word, broadcasting it in tones the galaxy had never heard before. Sarcasm laced with defiance, humor sharpened into a weapon. Veyrak's claws twitched. He had been sent to humiliate, but instead he stood unsettled. His strike had not broken the human. It had birthed something far more dangerous, curiosity. Rourke sensed it and pressed the advantage. He gestured at the crowd with a wide sweep of his arm. You want a show? Here's the truth. Humanity doesn't stop. We don't bend the knee because someone growls louder. We don't surrender because claws are sharper. We adapt. We endure. And when you think we're finished, he bared his teeth in something halfway between a smile and a snarl. We stand back up and ask for seconds. The words struck like a flare in the dark. Whispers broke into arguments. The spectacle was turning against its authors. Xyler shifted on his throne, claws drumming the armrest. His golden eyes narrowed, calculation glittering. He had expected tears and groveling. Instead, he had given the galaxy a glimpse of something unsettling, a man who laughed at humiliation. Rourke felt the weight of that gaze, the hot pulse of attention. He knew he was already being measured, dissected, filed into the Empire's cold equations. But he also knew he had done what he came for. He had taken the script, torn it in half, and written humanity's first line in a new play. Still, the cost was coming. He could feel it in the crowd's shifting tone, the tightening stance of the guards, the hungry gleam in Xyler's eyes. A man who defies humiliation must prove he can survive it. The slap had been only the opening act. Rourke spat blood onto the marble floor, then raised his gaze to the tears. One man, one slap. You thought that would end the story. But here's the part you never understood. Humans don't end stories. We start them. The crowd erupted, half in laughter, half in anger. Xyler's hand lifted again, and the next trial prepared itself in the shadows. And so the first clash of species did not begin with weapons, nor with armies. It began with a single Marine, a single slap, and a laugh that refused to die. Remember this, reader. In every empire, there comes a moment when arrogance writes the script of another's downfall. And often, the ink is nothing more than a bruise on a stubborn cheek. Funny thing about humans, we don't mind being outnumbered. We just call it Tuesday at Walmart. The words left Captain Rourke's lips as the first challenger lunged at him. A reptilian duelist with blades curling from each forearm like jagged scythes. The Prism Coliseum answered with 1,000 roars, the crystalline dome amplifying every sound until it shook like thunder. The galaxy had demanded spectacle, and spectacle it would have, though not the one it expected. Rourke sidestepped the duelist's lunge with a movement born not of elegance, but of efficiency. He snagged the creature's arm, pivoted, and used its own weight to hurl it across the marble. The alien landed with a hiss, stunned. Rourke didn't follow with a killing blow. Instead, he adjusted his sleeve, dusting it as though swatting lint. The audience gasped. To them, restraint was weakness. To him, it was theater. You're still breathing, he told the duelist, voice carrying. Count yourself lucky. Some folks back home wouldn't give you that courtesy over the last slice of pizza. Laughter rippled, confused yet infectious. The alien rose, humiliated, and slithered off the arena floor. Another champion entered, a four-armed brute with hammers for fists. He thundered forward, eager to prove himself the savior of alien pride. Rourke let him swing, dodging narrowly, feeling each gust of displaced air. He baited the creature into overextending, then slammed an elbow into its jaw. The hammer-bearer staggered. Rourke didn't finish him either. By the third match, the Colosseum had transformed. What began as hunger for human blood had shifted to whispers of awe. This strange ambassador, this Marine, was not conquering through brutality, but by refusing to deliver it. In a galaxy that revered spectacle and slaughter, he offered something alien: control. Between bouts, Rourke raised his voice. You think this is about fists and blades? Wrong. Humanity's weapon has always been stubbornness. Spartans stood 300 against an army. Runners carried messages across deserts until their lungs gave out, and we called it a marathon. We even invented duct tape because the universe kept falling apart, and someone had to hold it together. The translators sputtered at duct tape, rendering it into alien tongues as an adhesive of infinite purpose. A murmur of dread swept the tiers. If a species could name such a thing casually, what else might they possess? Still, not all were convinced. Overlord Xyler's jaw tightened, golden eyes narrowing. He flicked a claw, and from the shadows marched the obsidian fangs, his elite guard. 10 warriors, armor blacker than void, moved as one. Their weapons were living blades, forged from symbiotic organisms that hissed at the scent of blood. Each Fang had broken empires in their training. The crowd leaned forward. This would not be humiliation. This would be obliteration. Rourke rolled his neck. Great. 10 against 1. Just like Thanksgiving dinner. They came at him in a storm. Blades slashed, claws raked. He dodged the first, parried the second, but the third cut deep across his shoulder. Pain flared white-hot. He gritted his teeth and twisted, using his own blood-slick arm to slide free. He countered with a headbutt that crunched against a Fang's mask, dropping the warrior. Another slammed him from behind. Marble met his ribs with a crack. He wheezed but shoved himself upright. Each breath was fire, each movement slower. Still he fought. Pain became fuel. Every strike that landed only drove him harder, sharper. He remembered deserts where thirst burned worse than bullets. He remembered nights where the only warmth came from humor traded between brothers in arms. Marines had a saying, embrace the suck. And here he was, embracing it before the galaxy. A Fang's blade drove into his thigh. He roared, seized the weapon, and twisted until it screamed like a living thing, snapping in half. He smashed its wielder to the floor. Another Fang closed in, talons ready to tear. Rourke spat blood and grinned through broken teeth. Bleeding doesn't mean broken. The phrase echoed across the tiers, whispered by translators into countless alien tongues. A mantra, a warning, a prophecy. One by one, the fangs fell, not slain, but sprawled, groaning, defeated. Rourke swayed on his feet, body a canvas of wounds. His coat was shredded, skin painted with crimson, but his grin remained. He raised his gaze to the dais. What now, Xyler? Gonna send the janitors next. The Overlord's golden eyes flared with fury. He could no longer retreat. Pride demanded escalation. Law demanded response. The galaxy demanded climax. Xyler rose from his throne, every scale glimmering like molten coin. His claws flexed, sparks rippling across his armor. The Colosseum erupted, half in terror, half in joy. Their God King was descending. Rourke chuckled, though it came out ragged, nearly a cough. Finally, the main course. The Overlord landed with a shattering impact, marble cracking beneath his weight. He loomed over the Marine, towering, radiant, terrible. You have insulted my champions, shamed my guard, and mocked me before my empire. I will end you. Rourke spat another mouthful of blood, rolled his shoulders, and raised his fists. Buddy, you're not the first tyrant to say that. You won't be the last. Let's dance. The duel ignited. Xyler struck with crushing swipes, claws blurring. Rourke blocked one, ducked another, but the third slammed him across the chest, launching him into a pillar of crystal. Pain screamed through his body. He staggered upright, lungs wheezing. But he smiled. Always smiled. You hit hard, he rasped, blood dripping from his lips. But I've been married. Pressure doesn't scare me. The audience reeled at his madness. Every blow that should have crushed his spirit became another chance for humor. Every wound he carried became a banner of defiance. Rourke surged forward, every ounce of Marine training funneling into precision. He drove his fist into the Overlord's jaw, elbowed his ribs, kneed him in the gut. Not enough to topple him, but enough to prove he could. Enough to show the galaxy their king could be struck. Xyler bellowed, the sound shaking the dome. He lifted Rourke high, claws pressing against his throat. The Marine dangled, choking, vision blurring. But even then, even on the edge of death, his grin stayed. You sure you want to do this in front of your fans? 'Cause if I walk out of here, they'll never look at you the same. The words hit harder than any strike. The Overlord hesitated, claws trembling. In that heartbeat, Rourke twisted, slammed his knee up, and dragged the king down into the marble with a thunderous crash. The Colosseum froze. Silence blanketed the stars. Xyler lay beneath him, pinned. Humanity's ambassador, broken and bloodied, stood above the Empire's ruler. Rourke staggered to his feet, voice hoarse but strong. One man. That's all it took. Imagine the rest of us. The silence grew deeper, heavier, until it became more terrifying than any roar. Across the tiers, predators realized they were not at the top. Rourke turned, limping toward the exit, leaving his words behind like a brand burned into history. And remember this, reader, the world rarely changes with armies or empires. More often, it begins with one bruised fool who refuses to fall and dares to laugh in the face of giants. They said humans couldn't move empires, so I moved their emperor instead. Captain Elias Rourke's words still echoed through the Prism Coliseum as he stood, battered and bleeding, over the fallen form of Overlord Xyler. The galaxy had not prepared for this sight. Their God King sprawled on the marble like a broken idol, pinned by a species they'd only recently discovered. Every jewel-encrusted noble, every warlord, every diplomat present had witnessed the impossible. One human dragging the might of an empire down to its knees. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the Colosseum shuddered with sound. Not cheers, not jeers, but a storm of whispers. Translation, orbs flickered, struggling to keep up with the flood of voices. Fear had many dialects, but in that moment it spoke as one. Rourke staggered back, releasing the Overlord. His legs trembled, his vision swam, but he forced himself upright. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, heavier than any blade. He had won, yes, but victory here was not survival. Victory was theater, and theater had consequences. He wiped blood from his mouth and raised his voice. You saw what happened. No ships, no armies, just one stubborn jarhead who doesn't know when to quit. So think about this. If I can drag your king to the floor, what do you think my people can do when they come marching? Gasps rippled across the tiers. Some leaned forward in awe, others recoiled in dread. The statement was not a boast. It was a warning. Xyler stirred, groaning, fury twisting across his molten features. His pride bled worse than his body. He clawed at the marble, struggling to rise. Yet when his eyes met Rourke's, something flickered behind the rage, the first ember of respect. The guards surged forward, weapons raised, but Rourke lifted a hand. Don't. Not unless you want this spectacle to end in a pile of corpses. And trust me, I don't mind playing that role. He stood there swaying, body screaming for rest, daring them with nothing but defiance. The guards froze. Even in their obedience, they sensed the tide had shifted. From the balconies, alien leaders whispered furiously. Some plotted vengeance, others muttered alliances. Already, the calculus of power was being rewritten in the shadow of this marine. Rourke turned, addressing them directly. You look at us and see prey. Pets. Soft things obsessed with cats and television. But you miss the important part. You miss the fire. He tapped his chest, smearing blood across his torn coat. We break, but we don't stay broken. We bleed, but we don't stay down. And when you slap us, we don't just slap back. We tear down the hand that dared to touch us. The Colosseum hushed. For many, this was the first time they'd heard such words spoken without armor or armies to back them. It was just a man, shaking, half-crippled, yet burning brighter than a fleet. Xyler finally rose to one knee, chest heaving. His golden eyes met Rourke's with venom and shame. You think this ends here, human? You've painted a target on your species. The galaxy will not forget. Rourke smiled through split lips. Good. Forgetting's boring. Fear lasts longer. The Overlord's jaw clenched. He wanted to strike again, to prove supremacy. But the laws of his empire bound him. He had been challenged, he had been bested, and now he could not undo what the galaxy had seen. To break tradition would unravel his throne faster than any blade. So he stood in silence, seething, while his empire's courtiers realized that their ruler was no longer invincible. Rourke turned, limping toward the arena's edge. His boots left a trail of blood, each step an exclamation mark across the marble. He should have collapsed. Any sane man would have collapsed. But pride was oxygen, and he breathed it deeply. At the gate, a diplomat from the neutral systems approached, her translucent skin glowing faintly with bioluminescence. She bowed low, not to Xyler but to him, "Ambassador of Earth," she said softly, "today you have unsettled the galaxy." Rourke gave a tired grin. "Lady, I unsettled my drill sergeant once. The galaxy's just a bigger audience." Behind him, the crowd erupted, not in unison, but in chaos. Some chanted his name, others hissed curses, but all of them remembered. The Marine had done more than fight. He had planted a seed. The seed of doubt in their rulers. The seed of possibility in their slaves. The seed of war in their politics. He made his way into the corridors beneath the Colosseum, every step heavier, vision dimming at the edges. His hand trembled as he leaned against the crystalline wall. He'd given the galaxy a show, but he wondered at the cost. Could Earth truly weather the storm that would follow? Would humanity rally behind the spark he'd lit, or would it burn them alive? As he collapsed onto a bench, medics rushing forward, he allowed himself one last muttered quip. Somebody better have a burrito waiting back home. Extra cheese. The medics exchanged confused looks, but the translation orb spread the phrase throughout the Empire. Somewhere, someone recorded it, and within days, extra cheese would become a whispered phrase of rebellion. Meanwhile, in the chamber above, Xyler retook his throne, broken but burning. His empire trembled around him, allies weighing betrayal, enemies sniffing opportunity. He would not forgive this humiliation. Already, plans of retribution spread like wildfire. The war had not yet begun, but its shadow had fallen across the stars. Yet even in that shadow, there was light. Across distant worlds, oppressed people spoke the name of humanity with new reverence. Not because of ships or weapons, but because one man had shown them a truth. Power is not invulnerability, it is the will to rise when struck down. And so, the Colosseum did not remember just the duel. It remembered the moment the galaxy shifted. Remember this, reader. History is rarely written by empires at their strongest. More often, it is carved by the laughter of a single defiant soul, standing bloodied in the dust, daring the universe to strike again. And sometimes, that soul is foolish enough to be human.